I used to think love was about patience. About waiting. About being the cool girlfriend, the one who never pressured him, never gave ultimatums, never asked for too much. I thought if I just loved him the right way, quietly and loyally, he'd wake up one day and say, "You're the one I want forever." But waiting turned into wasting. And when he finally proposed, it was the moment I realized how little I actually meant to him. I had this image in my head since I was 15. A beach at sunset. Maybe candles. Maybe something simple but intentional, like the lyrics of my favorite song playing in the background. Not for Instagram. Not for likes. But for the story we'd tell our kids one day. And for 6 years, I held on to that dream. Not because I needed the spectacle, but because I needed to know I was worth the effort. His name was Landon. We met in college. He was magnetic in that broody, unreadable kind of way. The guy who never tried too hard, who made you feel lucky just to be noticed by him. He had ambition. He had presence. And he had this belief that love shouldn't be performative. I bought into that. He said things like, "Why do people make such a big deal out of one moment?" Or, "Marriage is just a piece of paper." And I'd nod. Laugh. Agree. Even though deep down, I wanted to be chosen in a way that felt unmistakable. My love language was words and gestures. His was, just showing up. But over time, even that faded. No flowers. No birthday plans. No asking how my day was unless I brought it up first. He stopped remembering the small things. Or maybe he never really cared to begin with. I didn't notice it right away. When you love someone, you become a professional at explaining away the cracks. He's just busy. He's not into grand gestures. He loves me in his own way. But the truth was louder than all my excuses. It wasn't about the ring. Or the setting. Or the lack of music. It was the message that rang through that moment like a bell I couldn't unhear. You waited 6 years, and this is what you're worth to him. And that's when everything I believed about us, about love, about myself, began to unravel. Landon was always 2 different people. In public, he was golden. Funny. Charming. He had this calm confidence that made everyone gravitate toward him, waiters, co-workers, even my dad. He was the kind of guy who never looked flustered, never said too much, but still managed to own the room. But in private, he was cold. Not mean. Just emotionally blank. He didn't do birthdays. Said anniversaries were corporate nonsense. Every time I brought up something sentimental, he'd make a joke or change the subject. Early on, I told myself he was just guarded. Maybe he had his reasons. I thought my love would soften him, melt the walls brick by brick. That's what movies say, right? Love fixes people. So I kept trying. I planned little date nights. Left sticky notes in his jacket pocket with sweet messages. Bought him a leather wallet with his initials engraved. Wrote him a card when he landed his first major client. He forgot most of it. Or said things like, "You didn't have to do all that." Not in a grateful way, more like I was making a fuss over nothing. I remember one moment so clearly, it still burns. He got a promotion. I bought him a cake. Had "You deserve this" written in gold icing. I set up candles, his favorite whiskey, and even played that playlist he used to love. He walked in, stared at the table, and said, "You didn't have to do all this. It's just work." Then he went to the bathroom and scrolled on his phone for 20 minutes. I smiled. Cleaned everything up the next morning. But I felt like a clown in full makeup, like I'd thrown a party for someone who didn't even show up emotionally. His mom didn't help either. She always had this polite smile with me, but I could feel it, the judgment. She once told me, while pouring tea, "You're very sweet. But Landon needs someone who challenges him." My own mom, meanwhile, kept asking, "Has he said anything about proposing?" She meant well, but the question chipped at me every time. I'd shrug and say, "Not yet." I never told her how I once caught him looking at my Pinterest board full of proposal ideas, beaches, rooftops, candlelight, and he'd actually laughed. "This is so cringe," he said, handing my phone back like it was sticky. The red flags were everywhere. He never asked about my feelings. He'd say, "You're being dramatic," if I cried. Or, "It's not that deep," if I ever told him I felt unseen. But the worst part? I believed him. I thought if I just held on long enough, he'd finally understand what I needed. I didn't realize I was waiting for someone who was never coming. It was our 6th anniversary. We were headed to his uncle's barbecue, behind the family's auto shop, of all places. Just gravel, folding chairs, oil stains, and a busted radio playing old country songs. Not exactly romantic, but I still held on to this ridiculous, impossible hope that maybe, he had something planned. I wore a new sundress, soft lavender. Took extra time with my makeup. Curled my hair. I even painted my nails just in case he noticed my hands. Just in case something happened. The second we got there, that hope started to dim. He barely looked at me. Grabbed a beer. Gave me a quick, "Hey, babe," and wandered off to talk about car parts with his cousins. He didn't even introduce me to the new people standing around. I was just there. Like luggage. I stood by the truck, fiddling with my bracelet, trying not to let my disappointment show on my face. That's when he walked over. No smile. No build-up. No warmth. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out a tiny box, and tossed it at me. Tossed it at me. It hit my arm and landed on the ground near my feet. "Here," he said. "You've been bugging me about this for years. Let's get it over with." Just like that. Not even looking me in the eye. Not even saying the words. I blinked. Honestly, I thought it was a joke. I stared down at the box in the dirt like it was a dead bird. But he didn't laugh. He didn't say anything else. He just walked away, sipping his beer. People saw. His uncle, his cousins. A woman I'd never met narrowed her eyes and muttered something to her friend. I could feel the heat rising up my neck. But it wasn't from the sun. It was from the humiliation. There was no music. No flowers. No words. Just gravel, engine grease, and the sharp metallic taste of shame blooming in my mouth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up the box with shaking hands and slipped it into my purse. Then I stood there, staring at the truck, trying to remember how I'd ever thought this man loved me. But that was the moment. Not when he tossed the ring. Not when the box hit the ground. The real moment was when I realized he would rather humiliate me than love me properly. That everything I had hoped for, waited for, begged for, meant nothing to him. And worse. It meant I meant nothing to him. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the ring at his feet. I didn't storm off like the girls in the movies. Instead, I smiled. Not because I meant it, but because I was surviving. I tucked the box into my purse like it was just a receipt or some loose change. I laughed when someone made a joke about us finally making it official. I even thanked his aunt when she handed me a paper plate of ribs. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. But inside, I was screaming. That night, back at our apartment, he dropped his keys on the counter and collapsed on the couch like nothing had happened. No follow-up. No, "I love you." No real acknowledgement. Just a, "Hey, grab me a drink." I walked into the bedroom, opened my drawer, and slid the ring inside without even looking at it. And that's where it stayed. I stopped talking as much after that. Stopped suggesting weekend plans. Stopped asking how his day was. I think he assumed the ring had solved everything. Like it was some magical device that reset the relationship. But it hadn't fixed anything. It had just exposed everything. I started taking long walks alone after dinner. Said I needed fresh air. In truth, I needed distance. I needed silence, something his indifference was drowning me in. I found my old journal during one of those nights. Tucked in the back of the closet, under a box of photos from our first year together. I opened it to a page I barely remembered writing. It was from year 2. I had drawn a little heart in the corner and written in loopy handwriting, "I hope I'm not still begging for love in 5 years." And there I was. Year 6. Not just begging, but shrinking. Dimming myself just to keep peace. Laughing when I wanted to cry. Lowering the bar so he could step over it without ever lifting a foot. That night, I sat in the dark and whispered to myself, "He's not going to change." And worse, I realized something terrifying. If I stayed, I'd end up raising daughters who thought this kind of love was normal. That was the moment I knew. Something had to end. I didn't plan a dramatic exit. No fights, no crying on the floor, no throwing things. I just decided. One morning, I waited until he left for work. Same routine, same half-hearted kiss on the cheek, same distracted, "Text me if you need anything." And then, for the first time in 6 years, I did something just for me. I packed. Not everything. Just the pieces of myself I still recognized. A few clothes. My journal. The books I used to love before I got too busy convincing him to love me. I left the ring, still in its untouched box, on the kitchen counter. Next to it, I placed a small handwritten note, "You gave me a box. I'm giving it back. I want the whole damn world, or nothing at all." And then I walked out. I moved in with my friend Kira across town. She had a guest room and a bottle of wine waiting the moment I showed up with puffy eyes and a trash bag full of sweaters. I turned off my phone for 2 days. Deleted my Instagram. Blocked him everywhere. For the first time in years, the silence felt safe. 2 weeks passed before I saw him again. He showed up at Kira's front door. No warning. Just stood there with messy hair and panic in his eyes. His voice cracked when he said my name. "You left. Over that. I didn't think you'd take it that seriously." I didn't move. I didn't flinch. "I gave you the ring, didn't I?" he added, his tone rising, like he was the one betrayed. And that's when I finally said it. Out loud. To him. To myself. "You gave me a ring. You never gave me love." He didn't know what to say to that. I could see the realization start to bloom in his eyes, not just that I was gone, but that I meant it. That the version of me who waited, begged, apologized, and made excuses, didn't exist anymore. He reached out like he wanted to touch my arm, like maybe if he held me I'd fold. But I didn't. I stepped back, whispered, "Goodbye, Landon," and shut the door gently behind me. And I didn't turn back. Because the truth is, I wasn't leaving because he failed to propose the right way. I was leaving because somewhere along the way, I stopped recognizing myself, and I was ready to come home to the woman I used to be. It's been almost a year since I left. Now, I live in a small one-bedroom apartment with a leaky faucet and too much natural light. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. There's peace here. Silence that doesn't scream. A bed I don't cry in. A mirror I'm learning to recognize myself in again. I have a new job now. It's not what I went to school for, but it feels good. It feels like motion. I started therapy every Thursday at 6 p.m. The first few sessions were just tears. Then stories. Then silence. Then slowly, understanding. I'm still healing. Some nights I wake up and forget I'm not in that old apartment. I still find myself flinching when a man raises his voice in public. Still feel a pang in my chest when I walk past a jewelry store. But then I breathe. I touch my wrist. I remind myself I left. I chose myself. And I didn't need a diamond to do it. I've started dating again. Slowly. Cautiously. The first guy I met opened every door for me and remembered the name of my cat from a 2-minute conversation. I didn't fall head over heels. I didn't try to impress him. I just observed. I asked questions. I set boundaries. And for once, I wasn't scared they'd leave if I had needs. Looking back, I used to think the worst thing was not getting my dream proposal. No candles. No flowers. No heartfelt words. Just a box, tossed like spare change. But now I see the real tragedy. The real tragedy was spending years with someone who made me feel like I didn't deserve a dream proposal. Who convinced me that wanting to feel chosen was asking too much. And maybe that's what I want you to take away from all this. If you're watching this, and you're still waiting on someone to see your worth, still hoping he'll grow up, still telling yourself, he's just not expressive or he's not the romantic type, ask yourself something harder. If you handed him your heart in a box, would he toss it too? Because love isn't just showing up. It's showing up with intention. With care. With presence. You shouldn't have to beg for effort. You shouldn't have to perform to be loved. You deserve someone who plans. Who listens. Who looks at you like you're the miracle they never saw coming. And until that person shows up, be your own miracle. Fade out with soft piano music, and the sound of a ring box quietly clicking shut.